Welcome to episode 26 of Directed by Steven Spielberg. Today's film continues the theme of adventure from the previous film, but this time in the form of animation, and that film is 2011's The Adventures of Tintin. I have seen this film a number of times and I've always had a positive impression of it, but I've never really analyzed it in any kind of detail, so I'm excited to do that today. What did I think of the film after this most recent viewing? Let's find out. The Adventures of Tintin is an animated action-adventure film based on the beloved comic series by Hergé. The story follows young reporter Tintin, voiced by Jamie Bell, as he embarks on a thrilling quest for a lost treasure. The film begins with Tintin purchasing a model of the ship, the Unicorn, at a market. Soon after, he is approached by several people eager to buy the model, including the sinister Ivan Ivanovich Sakharine, voiced by Daniel Craig. Tintin refuses to sell, and his curiosity is piqued when the model is stolen, leading him to discover a hidden parchment inside that hints at a secret treasure. Tintin's investigation draws him into a web of intrigue as he learns that Sakharine is searching for 3 identical models of the Unicorn, each containing a clue to the location of a legendary treasure hidden by the 17th century pirate Sir Francis Haddock. Tintin, along with his loyal dog Snowy, teams up with the boisterous and often inebriated Captain Haddock, voiced by Andy Serkis, a descendant of Sir Francis Haddock, who holds the key to unlocking the mystery. Together, they travel across the globe, from Europe to the Sahara Desert to the high seas, facing numerous dangers, including shipwrecks, desert treks, and battles with Sakharine's men. The adventure culminates in a high-octane chase through the streets of Bagar and a final confrontation in the harbour, where the treasure's location is revealed. Tintin and Captain Haddock vow to continue their search for the remaining treasure, setting the stage for future adventures. The end. My initial takeaways from The Adventures of Tintin is that from a technical standpoint, the film is utterly superb. From a story standpoint, however, it's rather formulaic and doesn't have much depth to it. As per usual, I'll start with the technical aspects and what Spielberg brought to his first animation. The main takeaway I gained from this film upon this most recent viewing is that for all intents and purposes, it's essentially shot as a live-action film. My guess is that this was done in order to keep the film from appearing explicitly as a kid's film, which I think it succeeds at doing for the most part. That said, the film does at times take advantage of its animation setting, taking liberties with some outlandish visuals, particularly with some action scenes. One thing I will mention about the effects in Tintin is that as impressive as they are, they do push into that uncanny valley territory at times, creating that slight sense of discomfort for the audience by trying to separate the hyperrealism of the animation from reality. Then the first scene in the marketplace has a brief display of Spielberg concealment, withholding our main character with a nice nod to his comic book origins. During the storm sequence later on, you get an instant of the Spielberg zoom-in close-up, another element reminiscent of his live-action camera work. There are some cool transitions as well, particularly with the water puddle shot and the handshake. One of the standout moments of the film is the plane sequence through the storm, as things get progressively worse for our main protagonist, all the way up to the tip of Tintin's iconic hairdo. But the best scene of the film from a visual standpoint is easily the chase sequence through Bagar, which relies on a familiar Spielberg technique, the tracking shot. The scene clearly takes inspiration from his indie films, combining comedic flair and heart-pumping adrenaline in order to execute a highly entertaining piece of action. I can even see Peter Jackson's influence on the scene, who served as one of the producers, particularly when compared to some of the comedic style action he implemented in the Hobbit films. The interesting part is that whilst the scene may be a favorite of the film, the conclusion of the scene is a perfect encapsulation of its shortcomings from a writing perspective. To set the scene, the outcome of the chase results in Sakharine escaping with the third scroll, leaving Tintin disheartened and ready to give up. After some brief convincing from Haddock, however, he is inspired to resume the chase. And therein lies the issues with this film. It lacks genuine heart. Tintin's motivations throughout the film are never fleshed out beyond his basic passion for solving mysteries, and thus the moment he chooses to quit doesn't feel earned, just as his soon after change of heart is equally unearned. There is no sense of catalyst for his motivations other than to plainly and simply solve the mystery. Now, not every adventure seeker requires immense depth to justify their actions, but at least a little emotional motivation could have gone a long way towards making Tintin a more three-dimensional character in this film. Speaking of characters, the best character in the film is undoubtedly Captain Haddock, whom the king of motion capture Andy Serkis brings his usual charisma to the role and provides most of the comedy for the film. I thought Simon Pegg and Nick Frost as Thompson and Thompson also delivered superb vocal performances as the dim-witted detectives, providing further comedic relief to the film. The music is fantastical and fitting of a swashbuckling adventure, and John Williams never lets us down. Overall, The Adventures of Tintin is a technical masterpiece that is let down by an underwhelming plot and a lack of character development. It's a shame because if it delivered in those departments, we would easily have an Indiana Jones level film on our hands and a smash film franchise would have been born. Instead, The Adventures of Tintin is one of Spielberg's more forgotten films and is cemented by the fact that it never got a sequel, particularly when there is so much source material to pull from. I still enjoy it as a superficial piece of entertainment, but will always wish it could have been more. So there you have it. The Adventures of Tintin is an expertly filmed animation adventure with a very basic plot. You can't help but compare it to Spielberg's Indiana Jones films, at least narratively, but unfortunately it falls short when it comes to overall quality. That said, it's still a solidly enjoyable film, and for that I'm going to give The Adventures of Tintin a 7 out of 10, replacing Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in 20th place. That concludes today's episode. Coming next is Spielberg's other 2011 film, the war drama War Horse. I am quite fond of this film, and so I'm excited to check it out again for this series. Until then, I thank you all very much for watching, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.